Japan after World War II was a time of change where traditions clashed with new Western ideas. Japanese film director Akira Kurosawa was one of the leading forces in this cultural shift. But what exactly did he do that made such an influential cultural force? After World War II ended, the Japanese people struggled to come to terms with their cultural identity. Before the war, Japan experienced a period of rapid imperialization. According to Takashi Inaguchi, an author for the Edinburgh Companion to the History of Democracy, with the onset of the Second Sino-Japanese War in 1937, Japan entered a third period of pre-1945 politics. It was marked by an upsurge in anti-democratic forces such as the military and ultra-conservative parties, who centralized power and became increasingly authoritarian. This in turn led to a high sense of national pride amongst Japanese citizens. After the war, that was all gone. The culture had to change, and Kurosawa saw to it that Japan could still have its own national identity while being westernized to a degree. What he didn't do was just change Japanese culture, he changed cinema around the world. His films center around samurai and were distinctly Japanese, but they had many Western themes that went against the cultural grain of Japanese society. The most notable theme of Kurosawa's films are his heroes. Kurosawa's stories mainly focus around samurai, known for their stoicism and prowess as noble warriors. In his films, he humanizes samurai and shows their flaws in humanity, like in his most notable film, Seven Samurai. For example, Kikuchiyo is one of the main samurai, however, he's not truly one of them. He's a common-born man that worked hard to even be recognized as a samurai, even though he'll never truly be one. This goes against the rigid caste system of shogunate-era Japan, and was never seen before in Japanese cinema. That's just one small detail, though. The entire movie goes against the norm of samurai movies in Japan. The Seven Samurai agree to help a poor village fend off a band of raiders for nothing in return, which was unheard of in Japanese culture. Samurai would never accept such a task and would rather fight for lords in return for money. Kurosawa took the classic samurai trope and blended it with themes of heroism and humanity more commonly seen in Western cinema. I think notable film critic Roger Ebert summarized the point of the film the best. He said in his review that the purpose was to make samurai movies more anchored in Japanese culture, and yet argued for flexible humanism in place of rigid traditions. That's essentially the case for a lot of Kurosawa's films, taking the rigid Japanese culture and blending it with more free-form Western ideas. Kurosawa was deeply influenced by Western storytelling. His first color film, Ran, is a retelling of the Shakespearean drama King Lear. The story follows an old Japanese lord who decides to abdicate his throne and divide his empire amongst his 3 sons. He gives each son a castle and expects 2 of his sons to obey the eldest. One of the sons goes against his father's wishes and starts a civil war. As the civil war goes on, the old king loses his sanity and in the end regains it and reconciles with his rebellious son before his son's death. At this point in Kurosawa's career, Japan was already pretty westernized, as it was 1985. However, it is, in my opinion, one of the clearest examples of Kurosawa's interest in Western storytelling. In the film, there is an important moment where the old king shows his sons a bundle of 3 arrows representing them. Together they are strong and cannot break, but on their own they're weak and can break easily. This was a specific choice made by Kurosawa, as the 3 arrows is an old reference to an old Japanese illustration. He essentially did a reverse of what he'd done before and took a Western story and made it distinctly Japanese. Some critics even say Kurosawa's adaptation of the play is better than the original. Roger Ebert wrote in his review, Kurosawa's film expresses that despair perhaps more deeply than a Western film might. The samurai costumes, the makeup inspired by no drama, give the story of a freshness that removes it from all of our earlier associations. Kurosawa's directing style and his personality is another good representation of how Japanese culture is prevalent in his films, even if it isn't obvious. According to a rare interview with the director done by Charles Higham, Kurosawa is quiet and reserved and doesn't enjoy surface-level talks about his films. Higham notes, Kurosawa is extremely reticent, unwilling to discuss his films on the ground that, if I could have said it in words, I would have. Then I wouldn't have needed to make the picture. And he goes on to say that he's a quiet, reserved man who saves all his energy for his work, totally committed to his role as Japan's foremost film artist. He has no time for interviewers and is granted only a handful in his career. Higham then later remarks, from the beginning the young director displayed an authoritarian sternness towards his technicians, exacting from them the utmost they could give. His work ethic is synonymous with the overall culture around work in Japan. It's interesting to note Kurosawa's inspiration for many of his films come from spaghetti westerns. In the interview, Higa mentions he has, however, expressed his admiration for Ford, Stevens, and Wyler, and in general, he thinks American movies are far superior to his own. It's ironic how Kurosawa's influences come from the same genre he had a massive influence on. Kurosawa's influence on international cinema is nothing short of incredible. He's credited with being a major influence on Western films. He's even the main inspiration for the original Star Wars movies. Brett Davies, a professor of global Japanese studies at Meiji University, wrote, George Lucas admits to basing the storyline for the original Star Wars upon The Hidden Fortress, with its sword fights, rescued princesses, and warrior's code of honor. Lucas mimicked Kurosawa's visual style too, in pointing the camera at the sun, employing wipes between scenes, and even dressing Darth Vader in a Kabuto-style helmet. Even movies such as The Magnificent Seven and, surprisingly, A Bug's Life are directly influenced by Seven Samurai. Kurosawa has gone down in history as one of the greatest directors, but I think he's much more than that. At the start of this, I asked what made him such a powerful cultural force. Well, Akira Kurosawa represents a new age for Japan, one more aligned with more free-form Western ideas, but still distinctly Japanese. He's a perfect representation of what Japan is as we know it today, very much influenced by Western culture and ideas, but still its own unique culture. Kurosawa's work has and will continue to attract fans and inspire filmmakers from all over the world for years to come.